Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today is my recommendation video that I'm using for the one challenge for the Night Marathon readathon that's coming up. So let's go ahead and get right into this video. So if you didn't know, Night Marathon is coming up really soon. It's going to be in 2 weeks. Like, I just cannot believe how fast just every single month flies by. And so if you haven't seen the Night Marathon announcement video, I will pop it up in a card right here. And then I also have it linked down below. This readathon I'm hosting with Shelby from Shelby Taggart Reads and Kendra from Kendra Loves Books. And both of their channels will be linked down below as well, so you can check out their channels. When we were coming up with the challenges, we wanted to have a challenge where you had to read a recommendation by one of us. So all of us have recommendation videos that just came out today, and so you can go to their channels down below and check out their recommendation video. And for that challenge, all you have to do is pick just one. You don't have to read a recommendation from all three of us. You can just pick one of our recommendations and you've hit the challenge. This video is not going to have all of my favorite thrillers in it. I only picked my 5-star reads and only the ones that I thought would work really well with this readathon. So if you want to know all of my favorite thrillers, usually my 4 to 5-star reads, then I have a different thriller recommendation video for you. This video is only going to have about 8 to 10 books mentioned in here, and they're all like some of my very, very favorites. And so I really hope that you find one that you're going to love to read for Night Marathon. So I'm not really going in any particular order. I just have a bunch of the books that I really, really liked, and then I wrote down whether or not they fit into some of the challenges. So we're gonna start out with just a short story, and it's the GrownUp, and I really, really loved this book, number one, because it's only like 60 some pages. So it's absolutely fantastic to use this for a readathon because you can knock it out really, really quick. And this one actually fits into reading a paranormal book because it's a thriller, but it also has these weird paranormal elements, in my opinion. I don't know if it actually says paranormal on Goodreads because I didn't even check, but in my mind, when I read it, I was thinking that there were probably paranormal elements in it. Unfortunately, I can't really tell you a synopsis for this because it's so short, so you just have to go into it. It's really weird, it's really creepy, and it's one of the perfect books, I think, to read in October, and especially for Night Marathon. Next up, I'm gonna mention The Cabin at the End of the World, and this book I read a couple months ago, and it was in my 5-star prediction video, and I did rate it 5 stars. This also fits into the paranormal challenge that we have going on, and this is like an apocalyptic book about the end of the world. It's about this family that is in a cabin, and these like outsiders are they're like intruders, and they're trying to get into the cabin. So if you like reading about that, that's like one of the freakiest parts, is to think that you're like stuck inside one room or a building or something and people are trying to get in. What I also love about this book is that it has an ambiguous ending, and so you finish the book and you're like, what just happened? Was this real? Was it not real? Like, what is going on? So I feel like this is the perfect book to read for October and also for Night Marathon, like such creepy vibes. The next book I'm going to talk about is Never Have I Ever, and this is also one of my favorite thrillers that I've read this year. This is more of a domestic thriller along the lines of like Big Little Lies or something like that. And this fits with purple on the cover, which is one of our challenges. And it also fits in the 2019 thriller release. I actually had a hard time trying to find recommendations that fit the 2019 thriller release for myself, because I've read a bunch of new thrillers this year and I did not give them very high ratings. So I think this is one of the only 2019 thrillers that I've read that I actually really loved and would highly recommend to somebody. This book has a lot of crazy twists and turns, and it's about all of these mothers that are in this book club, and then this outside mother, she's like a new mother, comes in, she's trying to like take over everything, and then she has secrets, and they're playing this game Never Have I Ever, and everyone's trying to blackmail everyone. I love thrillers like that, and so I was so intrigued by like the synopsis of this, and it turned out to be an amazing thriller. A lot of people will get to a quarter of their way and they're just like, okay, like this is a good book, but then all of the twists keep happening, and then they're like, okay, yep, 5-star read. So I really, really hope that you pick this one up because it's been one of my favorites. The next book I want to talk about is No Exit, and for me, this fits into a challenge of something you're afraid of, because this involves a girl that was driving in the blizzard, I think in Colorado, and she stops at a rest stop, and there's only like 5 other people there at the rest stop, and they end up being snowed in all night long, and they don't have any like cell service or anything. And she had walked past this van in the parking lot of this rest stop and finds that there's a child that's abducted in the back of this van. So she is literally there all night long with a child abductor, and she doesn't know who it is, and it's absolutely crazy. This is such a thrilling read. It's also a great read for the winter time because of it being snowy. It's very atmospheric in a good way, not too much like detail or anything because I don't like detail. But I really, really loved this book. It's been one of my all-time favorite thrillers that I've read so far, and unfortunately it's not a 2019 release, even though I read it in 2019, so you could use this as a backlist thriller challenge as well. But I really, really loved this, and I highly recommend it. Another recommendation that could go into something that you're afraid of and a paranormal read is Byrd Box, and I love this. This is one of my all-time favorite like horror novels, and I read it last October. It was like the best book to read in October, and I was listening to it on audiobook when I hit a deer, so that was super scary, let me tell you. You might have seen the movie on Netflix, and the movie I actually think is really good, but the book is just so much better. But this is about this like apocalyptic world where people start seeing something that drives them insane and wants them to like murder people or commit suicide. This was such a survival book, and so that's something that like I would be afraid of. Like I'm afraid of like the end of the world, even though I love like reading or watching things like that. I just know that I would probably die first. I would be one of those weak ass people. But this book was just absolutely amazing. I was so intrigued by it, and I think that you guys should definitely check it out. Next book we're going to talk about is Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter, and this fits into the challenge of a book about murder. This is also a backlist thriller if you want to use it for that challenge as well. But this is a very, very graphic and highly disturbing dark thriller. This is one of my favorite Karen Slaughter books that I've read. This is the only one so far that I've rated 5 stars, and it is a pretty big book and is more of an adult thriller where it has a lot more detail and you have to really, really pay attention to like the facts and what's going on. It is very, very dark. There's probably a lot of trigger warnings in it, even though I can't remember exactly what they all are. But this, I would only suggest you read this if you love thrillers and you love dark things. I would not suggest this for you to read if you're not really into a lot of thrillers or you're a thriller beginner, because I think a lot of people could be turned off by it. I actually don't even remember much about the synopsis now that I think about it, because I've read it a couple years ago. I should have looked it up, but it's fine. If you like dark and disturbing things, then definitely check this one out. The next book that I'm going to recommend is Stillhouse Lake, and this is actually part of a series, but you could totally read this first book as a standalone and then just not even continue with the series if you didn't want to. This one would be for the challenge of a book about murder, and again, it could be a backlist thriller. This could also, in my opinion, fit for the challenge of something that you're afraid of, because this book is about this wife who finds out that her husband is a serial killer and he is chasing her and her children like all around the United States. And I had so much anxiety while reading this book because it just felt so real to me, and it was very, very scary to think about what you would do in that situation. This is such a mom-wife survival story, and you know, she's doing everything to save her kids, and not only is her like psychopath husband out to try and get her, but he also has these like fans of his that are also like sending her bullied emails and just things, so that's why she always has to keep moving. I really, really loved this book, and it deals with murder because of her husband killing these young ladies by being this like psychopath serial killer person, and so I think that this one would be a good one to check out for those challenges. Now, those are all the books that kind of fit into challenges. I do have a couple other 5-star reads that I just wanted to mention, and they do fit into like the backlist thriller, and they could possibly fit into maybe the something you're afraid of, if that's something that you're afraid of. I wanted to talk about I Can Be a Better You by Taryn Fisher. This one is one of my favorite thrillers ever, and I really, really enjoyed it. This has an unreliable narrator and is a domestic thriller, so I really enjoy that type of story. Then I also wanted to talk about Sometimes I Lie by Alice Feeney. I know some people really did not like this book or even her second book, but this was a 5-star read for me, and I thought it was really thrilling. And this also is an unreliable narrator because that's one of my favorite tropes. And this one involves a lady that is in a coma and she can't talk for herself, but she can like hear what's going on. And so you're reading like from her perspective and the story of how she like got in there and she thinks her husband's cheating on her and like all this kind of stuff. I love it. Then another one of my all-time favorites, and it's super underrated, and I wish way more people would read it because I would totally reread this, I'm pretty sure, because I just loved it so much. And this is Close My Eyes, and I absolutely loved this book. Again, it's a domestic thriller. It also involves like the loss of a child. And so I really, really loved this. I thought it had some of the best twists I've ever read in a thriller. And this involves, I think this lady, she thinks that she had like a stillborn child or her child like died in childbirth, but for some reason she's always felt that that actually wasn't true. And someone comes like to her house one day and is like, no, your child is alive. And so then she starts doubting like her husband and her friends and everything that's going on. And oh my gosh, you guys, like it is such a good domestic thriller. Highly, highly recommend it. It was absolutely amazing. Another one of my favorite domestic thrillers is Behind Closed Doors. And this one is also one of my all-time favorite thrillers ever. Now this one does involve like abuse. And so there are some trigger warnings in there for that one. And this one I think could be something that you're afraid of because the wife that's in this book, I would never want to have to deal with what she deals with. It's super scary that way. And so I really, really enjoyed this one. And then the last book that I want to recommend, even though I'm not completely finished with it, is Imaginary Friend by Stephen Chbosky. I'm about 300 pages out of this 705-page book, and I know that that's really intimidating for someone to read during a readathon, but this one would definitely fit into the paranormal book challenge, and I am so surprised how much I am loving this book already. It is absolutely amazing. I thought I was gonna have a really hard time reading it, and already at 300 pages, it's definitely a 5-star read. I'm super creeped out. I love how easy the reading is. Like the writing style is so great. I just really, really love it. And so I know that some people were on the edge of whether they wanted to read this in October or not. I really highly suggest that you try and get it read before the end of October because Gabby and I from Gabby Reads, we're gonna be doing a live show talking about it at the end of October whenever it fits with our work schedules. And I really want a lot of people to join in that because I think a lot of people are gonna like this book. All right, so that is all. That is my recommendation video for Night Marathon. I am so, so excited. And I can't wait to see if you guys are gonna pick one of the books that I recommended. And I really, really hope that you guys love it. Obviously, you can let me know if you don't love it. Like, that doesn't hurt my feelings at all. I know so many people have different tastes in thrillers and books in general, but I really think that these are some of the best thrillers that I've ever read in my life. So I really hope that you guys like them. Let me know down in the comments which ones you guys are thinking of picking and choosing for some of those challenges that I mentioned. And I will see you guys soon in my actual TBR for Night Marathon. Bye everyone.